Sifter for the ear.
News, interviews, reviews, cinema, TV, streaming. Action!
Hi y'all, this is Jerry Williams, aka TV Jerry. The Virginia Production Alliance's annual meeting, the State of the Industry, will be held Thursday, January 29th from 6 to 9 p.m. at Hardywood Craft Brewery. I'll have a link on the webpage for this show at TV Jerry.
The book did better than I thought it would do, and then I was voted best local author with a new book for Richmond Magazine's 30th annual Best and Worst issue in 2017. Sort of like a really fun superlative.
That was Ward Howarth talking about the success of his first novel. But that's not the main reason we're here. After all, this is about film and TV. Ward's full-time job is producing promotional videos for the Lockwood Broadcast Group for more than 20 years. Lockwood is a television, digital, and advertising company that owns and operates 13 TV stations and programs 33 channels in 8 markets. We'll find out more about this company that's right here in Richmond and about Ward's other interests, including writing novels.
Sifter Review of the Week.
The Rip on Netflix. This film opens with a dull series of police being interrogated, including the stars Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. After inconsequential scenes that set up the feistiness of the characters, a team heads to a stash house where they discover a lot of cash. This starts the machinations of how to handle it and who might be dirty. There's always a dirty cop. This results in intense discussions as the confusion and danger mounts. Through all the back and forth, the actors play it rough and tough. What little action that arises is staged in confusing darkness with matching editing. Writer-director Joe Carnahan creates a unique situation, but his efforts to generate tension don't. This film consists primarily of a lot of angry encounters trying hard to be dynamic, but turning out to be a tirade of noisy drama. By the way, it's never explained, but the rip is cop parlance for ripping off the bad guy's stuff. I gave the rip 2.5 out of 5 stars. Well, Ward, thanks for doing this.
Sure.
Do you remember when we first met? It was probably back at Henninger, maybe?
I think it was probably back in Henninger. You probably came in to do an edit or kind of a producing gig.
Footnote.
Henninger is a production company based in D.C. that had a branch here for a few years. So I want to talk about some of your past and how you got there. But first of all, what is Lockwood Broadcast Group?
Lockwood Broadcast Group was founded in 1996. We have a corporate office in Hampton. We have 13 stations in 8 broadcast markets, and we offer a total of 33 channels. Some of them are sub-channels, sister networks. We have, like, for example, Knoxville, Tennessee is my main focus, where I do branding for on-air. And we have a Fox affiliate there, WTNZ. We also have an independent station, WKNX, that doesn't have any station affiliation. You know, across the 33 channels, we cover everything. CW, Fox, ABC, NBC, and CBS. It just kind of depends on what market you're in. I believe they started with 2 markets in 1996. Since then, we have 8 total markets. 13 total stations.
Now, you mentioned that they have the headquarters down there, but I know the building that used to be, I guess, Comcast, they're on Staples Mill with all the satellite dishes all over it on the way to between Broad Street and Amtrak. That's your headquarters here. Is that correct?
Correct. That's what we call our hub. We have a master control set up in there that we run, I think, signals for 5 stations or 5 markets through there. But something like our Kansas station, we have a station in Wichita. You know, we don't broadcast that. They handle that there in Kansas and Wichita.
And what's your job?
I am a brand manager for our production department. We have a small core group of 4 people, 1 creative director, 2 producers, me, brand manager. My simple title, the way I kind of describe myself most of the time, is I make commercials for TV shows. I make commercials for things like Family Feud and the news. I don't make commercials for, say, the lawyers or the HVAC companies. I literally make commercials for the TV shows. It's all about grabbing promo time in breaks and reminding people and letting them know where they can find things like the Big Bang Theory, Family Feud, the 10 p.m. news, and whatever sports we have on the weekend. Things like that.
Yeah, promotional videos.
Promotional videos, yeah, basically.
Exactly. Is that how you started there? Did you just jump right into that, or did you start in a different position?
Initially, when I got to that building, in 2003, they were the local UPN affiliate. That's what they ran out of that building.
Footnote.
UPN was the United Paramount Network that started in 1993 and merged with the WB to become the CW in 2006.
We had a handful of rerun shows in addition to the whatever UPN network programming was back then. That's a long time ago. I can't remember that. I initially started as a commercial producer, so we would kind of go out to furniture stores, bail bondsmen. We would go out to car dealerships and film commercials. And then gradually, I gravitated towards doing more and more things, not in the field, but there in the office. And I was cutting trailers for movies that ran on the weekend. I was cutting promos for things like Will and Grace and King of Queens, some of the shows that we first had in syndication.
How did you get into video to start with?
When I was in college, I caught the movie bug and I started to watch film more seriously. I took film classes, volunteered at the James River Film Festival, which is still going on. I was a volunteer coordinator for that festival for a number of years. And I bought a video camera for the first time. And one of the first things I started to do was film skateboarding. I still skate, even just I'm about to turn 50, I still skate. But I filmed road trips that I was going on with my friends. I even made a skate video when I got to Henninger. I edited like a 26-minute video full of the road trips that we took along the East Coast. I was filming with my Super 8 camera, and I was making short films for film production classes at VCU. And on the side, I was filming skateboarding and filming some music videos. So that's really how that started.
Ironically, last week, Nick Klucheski was on the show. He's a Richmonder, and he started doing the same thing. He started doing stream sports videos and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting.
Cool.
And then at some point, you ended up doing it more legitimately. I guess that's one way of putting it.
Well, certainly, once I got to Henninger, I was the duplication coordinator. Yeah, well, to start at Henninger, I got an internship. I learned how to use an Avid, and then that led to a job.
Footnote.
Avid, aka Media Composer, is one of the original linear editing systems that uses computer files instead of tape.
I was there for 3 years. I did some assistant editing and offline editing. Woody Sherman, love that guy. He taught me so much. Scott Loggy was married to Cheryl. Of course, I got to know Cheryl and Tracy and some of the people that were there in the front office. But I learned how to edit there. I found probably more kinship to editing than shooting.
Surprise guest drop in.
You timed that perfectly because, as you may know, I like to have
goodness.
Miss Cheryl Loggy.
Hello, Ward.
Hi, Cheryl. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Footnote.
Cheryl Loggy has been in post-production for 5 decades and is currently operations coordinator at Arts and Letters Creative Company. Cheryl, tell us what your relationship is with Ward and what your first impressions when you did meet him.
It was just such a joy to meet Ward. I mean, I was like, what is like some kind of sinister little salacious story I can drum up about Ward? And there just really isn't one. I mean, I just remember, you may not believe this, Ward, but Tracy Melky and a lot of the other Henninger folks and I, whenever we like interview people, even now, we're always looking for a Ward because it's always somebody who just comes in just with such earnestness and such desire to do a great job. And let me give you a little bit of background about Ward. When we were looking for somebody to fill the role that Ward filled as his first professional role, we were looking for somebody that we were calling a duplication coordinator, somebody that like in the olden days, way back when you had to do dubs and actually produce tapes that you sent to people for their commercials or their spots. It wasn't something you just fed up onto the web and people pulled down to air. It used to be you'd have to edit your spot and then you'd have to output it onto a whole array of different types of actual tape and send them for the different broadcasters to use.
It could be anywhere from 1 to 50, right?
Depending on darling. In politicals, it was hundreds, and we were FedExing them all over the United States for commercials as well. It was not an easy job, and you had to make sure that each of those tapes was correct. It had its countdown. It had the audio at the right levels.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It was a stressful thing to everybody because that last piece that goes out is what reflects on the whole company. And so it was important to find somebody that you could trust to do a good job and who cared about it. And even though I don't think that's what he really wanted to do in the long run, because you were great about it, Ward, because I remember you came and you're like, hey, this sounds great. And you were so enthusiastic and so personable. And you're like, and I would love to, like, if after hours, if it's okay, if I can kind of edit on the equipment, we're like, oh my gosh, please, by all means.
It was amazing. I cut a music video for Denali. I cut my skate video on there. I'd stay at night, and it was incredible.
Did we ever call you Dub Cub to your face?
I don't know if I ever heard that.
Yeah,
That's
where I was
good
like,
though.
oh, he's the sweetest. And it sounds derogatory, but we said it with complete affection because you were,
Oh, that's
Dub
cool.
was like short for duplication. You were like just the consummate Dub Cub because you were huggable and kind and sweet and just did a superlative job in every way.
Wow, Cheryl, you are just making my year. The year just started. I also remember having like a CD player in the dub room where I got to play music. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I remember that now. Wow.
I'm so wildly proud of you, Ward. I mean, I just feel like you just keep taking new creative steps. And I remember like looking at WRLH's spots when you first left, and it was like, oh, like it's a spot for The Simpsons. And I know Ward did that. You know, like just like all the little the bumpers and things, like Family Feud, or I was like, oh, all the syndicated shows. I think he's doing all the bumpers and the intros to that. And I just remember thinking that, you know, it's like the next big step. And look what you've done, like now at Lockwood, and the fact that you're writing books and just
Yeah.
like your creativity just feels unstoppable. And I just feel so happy to have gotten to know you when I did, and just to kind of get to watch your professional and personal trajectory. It's just been a real joy. And I'm super proud to know you and super excited for all the things ahead, and so grateful to have the chance to get to talk to you. So thanks, Jerry.
Jerry, this is amazing. Cheryl, thank you so much. Real quick, I did not go to RLH. We were WUPV back then.
UPV, I'm sorry.
UPV. Oh, no,
Yeah.
you don't need to
No,
apologize.
please
Yeah.
correct live.
It's been 23 years, so.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh, stop.
Yeah.
I have children that are over 23 now. That's how different.
Right.
All right. Thank you, my dear. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Thank you, darling.
Thank you,
All
Cheryl.
the
You
best
rule,
to you,
man.
Ward.
Bye.
So, Dub Cub, huh? I guess that's
That was
gonna be
really
your new
nice, Dub
nickname.
Cub. You know, there was another name. I think Tape Ape used to get thrown around at other facilities. I don't think anybody ever called me that, but Dub Cub is more endearing. That's really sweet.
Yeah, Tape Ape sounds a little more aggressive or
Right.
something, doesn't it? Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So, in the 23 years you've been at Lockwood, what kind of challenges have you encountered?
One of the challenges we have is that I am remote essentially from the station I look after. So in Knoxville, Tennessee, one of the challenges we have there is that it can be difficult to orchestrate a shoot with their news talent. I don't mean that to sound like weird business speak, but sometimes it can take me a minute to sort of like get a script together, get a concept for a promo, but actually get it shot because of the challenges of where they are versus where I am. At the same time, we are very fortunate. We have two great shooters working for Lockwood there in Knoxville. And when they do get on the ground and when they do connect with the news talent at that station, I get great stuff. East Tennessee is a really, really beautiful place to hang out. And so a lot of the footage I get is reflective of the really, really fun environment that's there.
As opposed to challenges, what are some of the fun aspects of your job?
I've had a great, great time working on shows like The Big Bang Theory and Family Feud. You'd be surprised at how you can mine TV episodes like that for funny moments. I created a spot for Halloween that pulled a really, really ridiculously funny clip from Family Feud that was captured. It wasn't actually displayed. I don't actually think it made it to on air. It was just kind of like a B-side. Anyway, this woman's clip just was so funny and so creepy that I was able to craft a really fun Halloween promo from it.
It's a Fox 43 Fright Fest.
Name something you might be holding in your hand on the day you die.
My dead mother's tooth.
Your dead mother's what?
Creep it real this Halloween with Family Feud.
That's the most disturbing answer I've ever heard on this show.
We used to go to a conference in Vegas for an organization called Promax. They had a conference every June. You used to go out there and hobnob with different marketing professionals from different station groups, and you'd often get to meet stars and personalities from each network's flagship programs. And so it wasn't uncommon to rub elbows with all of the hosts on The Masked Singer or Lou Diamond Phillips, who used to be on a show on Fox. That's one thing I miss, but the marketing and promotion of television has changed, and it's not commercially viable to make that conference work anymore.
Novels. How did you decide you wanted to start writing? Or have you always done that?
I started writing a script sometime around 2005, 2006. I just had an idea for a baseball script. I got some comments on the writing. You know, a lot of people highlighted that. And I had written, I don't know, maybe short stories and, you know, script ideas when I was in college, but I hadn't really taken a lot to writing at the time. My son was born in 2007, and the idea of kind of running around and shooting movies sort of felt like I needed to find a way to be creative closer to home. And I'd been reading a lot of crime fiction by Raymond Chandler and James Ellroy and Michael Connelly, and I just kind of got the bug. I kind of thought, hey, why don't I see if there's something about Richmond that I could write about that would tap into this other creative side of me? My maternal grandfather had fought in World War II, and in the early aughts, I had an interview with him where he described from his enlistment to his discharge everything that happened to him in North Africa and Italy, and it was really eye-opening. At the same time, back then you had things like Band of Brothers and the Pacific were on TV. It wasn't hard to come by a really great, well-produced like World War II show. And so I started to look into the history of Richmond during World War II, and I found really interesting nuggets of things that had happened. And I ultimately settled on a plot point in my first novel, A Fire at the Jefferson, in March of 1944. They claimed the lives of 7 people, took out the 3rd and 4th wing on the, I believe, what you would call the southeastern side. The other thing I learned about Richmond at the time was that there had been an auxiliary police force in place after many of the well-bodied young men and women were called upon to serve their country. And I saw this as kind of a gray area for, sort of malfeasance, crime, corruption. And it just sort of struck me as sort of like a really interesting place in history, specifically in Richmond, to kind of set a novel.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because literally last week, a young man that I did a podcast with, Zach Wiener, who was here talking about his movie Bad Shabbos, we wanted to show him around town. They got here a little early. We took him and his girlfriend around town, and we went to the Jefferson, and they have that whole little historical area, and it talked about that fire. I never knew there was a fire at the Jefferson.
Yeah.
So which of those books was that, River City Blues or Shining Light?
That's River City Blues. And ultimately, when I got the book done, I didn't know anybody. Without an MFA or connections in publishing, I didn't know how to find an agent or an editor, and so I used self-publishing tools to kind of put the book together myself. And at the time, Ward Teft owned Chop Suey Books in Carytown. And he worked out a deal with me on a kind of consignment deal to have the books in the shop. And so that kind of got me off the ground. And that was really, really cool. The book did better than I thought it would do. And then I was voted best local author with a new book for Richmond Magazine's 30th annual Best and Worst issue in 2017.
Wow, great.
Sort of like a really fun superlative. That encouraged me to write a second book, and that became Shine a Light. And so I put that out early last year and have been just kind of like trying to take advantage of every opportunity that comes my way. I've got an event coming up in a couple weeks.
What's that going to be?
That is the Community Authors Expo on Saturday, January 24th. That is at the Fairfield Library on Laburnum Avenue. It's from 2 to 4 p.m. that afternoon. I have waited for confirmation on this. I believe I'll be reading from the book and talking about it for a period of time, but details about the authors and the lineup I just don't have in front of me yet.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll have a link on the website so people can check that out.
Awesome.
So obviously you're making all this stuff for work. What about for yourself? You ever made some shorts or some features or anything that you wanted to do just for your own pleasure?
One of the great things about working at Henninger was it allowed me access to some video equipment that I could use to edit. And I had been working on a Super 8 short film at the time, and finally got it edited in 2005 with the help of a VMFA professional fellowship that I won over the years 2004, 5, and 2006. And so I won the People's Choice Award at the Standing Rock International Short Film Festival in Ohio for a film called Storm in a Bottle. Essentially my writing is just kind of an extension of that. I'd spent years working on music videos and skate videos and short films. And, it's kind of like as I became, more of a professional in TV and found myself more at home with a family, writing, and especially novels, became a way for me to just keep pushing my creative side in the best way I could.
Are you planning to do more shorts or even a feature, or is books going to make it easier for you at this point?
I have more ideas than I have time for. I am working on a screenplay right now. I'm in the middle of a treatment for a script about sort of a makeshift family at a crumbling roadside motel. But I have an idea for 2 new novels and 2 short stories.
There you go. Good. Now, of course, one question I always like to ask at the end is, when you're not working on your own projects or working at Lockwood, what are you watching lately? What have you seen that's interesting? Movie or a TV show? I know that we both ran into each other the other night at The Secret Agent, and we both didn't love it. But what else have you seen besides that?
Oh, gosh. My wife and I are having a good time watching Landman on Paramount Plus.
I love that. Billy Bob Thornton should have got nominated for an Emmy for that. He's hilarious in that show.
He's great in it. There's a lot of nods to a show that I love called Friday Night Lights on that show. One of the actors from Friday Night Lights, the woman who played Grandma Saracen, she's on it. And it has some touches of the family connections that made Friday Night Lights so great. But Landman has its own quality of... It's just got something in its own way that I think Taylor Sheridan is doing really well on it. So we're really enjoying watching that. The new season, The Pit, is out. That's been really good. I loved One Battle After Another. I did like The Secret Agent at the end of the night, but I thought it was narratively a little off. I've been recently watching some old episodes of Miami Vice.
Oh, wow.
There's a quality to those episodes that I still really kind of mind for texture and tone.
Yeah, that was Michael Mann, too.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely. My son and I are going to see Blade Runner in the theater. It's
Wow.
here in Richmond here in a couple weeks.
How old is he?
He is 18.
I was envisioning like an 8-year-old. I'm like, that might be a little
sure.
heavy for an 8-year-old.
No, I showed my son Blade Runner maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and he fell in love with it. It's his favorite movie. And actually, we went to L.A. a couple of years ago, and in L.A. you can go to a place called the Bradbury Building that's featured in a lot of other movies, but is very prominent in Blade Runner.
Footnote.
You might recognize the Bradbury Building from its elaborate Victorian interior court that rises 50 feet with open cage elevators and ornate iron railings.
And when we toured Warner Brothers, you can actually see one of the props from the Blade Runner movie. So that movie is really special to us. So we're going to see that in the theater pretty soon.
You know, it's great that you mentioned that because I can't tell you how many of these podcasts I've done. Actually, last week, Nick mentioned it. His father used to take him to movies, and Hard Light Cinema, one of them talked about his father taking him to movies. So
that's
it's
awesome.
great that you're continuing that tradition with your son because that's a way to expose these kids to these movies that otherwise they may never have even seen or even heard of.
Oh, it's fantastic. I think over the pandemic, I got to show him The Usual Suspects. When you see that movie, you know, if you haven't picked up on what's happening in that movie and you see it for the first time, and he stood up off the couch and stormed to the next room, he couldn't believe it. He was fooled all the way. So it was great. So it was really fun to show that to somebody for the first time.
There you go. Great. Well, Ward, it was great to run into you the other night. I'm glad I did because it created this podcast.
Yeah, fantastic.
And it was great to talk to you on the show and hear more about what Lockwood's all about. Who knew it was right here in Richmond?
I feel like we're a little bit off the radar for some people. When I talk about my job, I kind of say, well, I make commercials for TV shows and I work in television, but we don't own a station in Richmond. So, you know, it still gets people kind of like turn their head around a little bit, but a little bit of discussion, you know, it's pretty clear what I do. So I'm so glad I ran into you. You're such a beacon for the production community. I can't thank you enough for bringing Cheryl on. Like, what a cool surprise, neat thing to happen tonight. I have so many fond memories of working at Henniger. That was such a real magical time in my life and just a real formative place for me to learn.
Good deal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry.
That was Ward Howarth, who's been producing promotional videos for the Lockwood Broadcast Group, which is the television, digital, and advertising company that owns and operates 13 television stations and programs 33 channels in 8 markets. And Ward's book event is January 24th from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Fairfield Library. I'll have a link to Lockwood plus Ward's novel website on the website for this show at tvjerry.com.
Coming soon. In theaters.
Mercy. The latest from cool Russian director Timur Bekmambetov is about a world where criminals are interrogated by an AI judge, starring Chris Pratt. The Testament of Ann Lee. Amanda Seyfried takes the title role as the founding leader of the Shaker movement. In Cold Light, Maika Monroe plays a woman who attempts to go straight after prison, but after witnessing her twin being murdered, she's forced to run for her life. Klika. After a small-town musician's clip goes viral, he tries to get involved in the new wave of Mexican-American music. Return to Silent Hill. This third film comes 20 years after the first and features a dark love story with mystery and death. Sentimental Value, which just won 8 Golden Globes, is returning to Movieland on Sunday the 25th, and it will include an 8-minute taped Q&A piece that plays immediately after the film.
TV and streaming.
The Beauty on FX and Hulu. The latest from Ryan Murphy revolves around supermodels around the world who are exploding after taking a fountain of youth drug, with Rebecca Hall, Anthony Ramos, Austin Kutcher, and Isabel Rossellini. Steel on Prime. Sophie Turner, best known for Game of Thrones, plays an office worker who gets pulled into a heist. Wonder Man on Disney. 2 actors are auditioning for the titular superhero when one of them unexpectedly discovers that he has his own superpowers, with Ben Kingsley. Bridgerton on Netflix returns for season 4. Next week, I'll feature Tyrone Nelson Jr., whose documentary Echoes of a Dream, Martin Luther King's Legacy in Richmond, Virginia, will be playing in several locations around town. This is Jerry Williams. Thanks for listening.
For more Sister, including literally thousands of reviews,
Visit tvjerry.com.
That's a wrap.